Maybe. Okay, there we go. Good evening. Welcome to the Zoning Design Review Board meeting for August 11th, 2015. First, I'd like to welcome our three new members, Carrie Dorman, Barbara Allen, and Mikkel Tigret. Tigret, got it. Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order.
And have a roll call.
Wonderful.
I'm going to say your name, just say here. Member Dorman.
Here.
Member Laz.
Here.
Member Cook.
Here.
Member Allen.
Yes.
Member Tigret.
Here.
Let the record show that everyone's here.
Yay.
Great.
We need to pledge of allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I need to have someone make a motion to adopt our agenda if they don't have any questions.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
In a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is adopted.
It's your first act as a new ZDRB.
There are no minutes provided, right?
Not right
Were
now.
there minutes? Okay. So we'll skip over that. Are there any public comments for items not on the agenda with either of our members of the audience? Okay. So we will skip that. The consent calendar? Nothing? All right. We will move to the public hearings and staff.
So at this time, I would like to recuse myself from this part of the hearing due to my relationship with Restoration Hardware.
Thank you very much.
And I need to excuse myself because I live almost next door.
Perfect. Okay.
So we have it's too unfortunate your very first item before the board today that you're going to excuse yourself, but we'll come back and get you. So yeah.
Thank you for that. I'll start. All right. Hi. We're going to start the staff report
All right.
then. Okay. Because there are three members now, any action that you do vote on will need to be unanimous because now there are only three members of the board. We need all three of you. Okay. So the master development plan for the RH Gallery was approved by the Yountville Town Council on June 2nd of this year, and the showroom is going to be located at 6725 Washington Street. On July 28th, a plan was approved for a construction barricade following a 10-day review and comment period that started on July 15th. The plan consisted of a construction barricade made of plywood and painted black, measuring 8 feet tall from the right corner with the smooth side facing Washington Street. A plywood gate is located on that northeast corner of the site. The original plan, as shown on the monitor, contained one 24-square-foot construction sign that says RH Yountville, the Gallery in Napa Valley, opening summer 2016. Before the board tonight is an application to modify this barricade. The applicant proposed to put two logos on either end of the barricade, with a quote by Picasso featured in the center. The quote reads, "Every act of creation is first of all an act of destruction," with subtext beneath it that says, "See what destruction hath wrought summer 2016." Staff now needs to clarify just a few things that are in the original staff report that we submitted to the board. As presented tonight, these two logos on either end are both sized just slightly under 24 square feet. They're 23.29 square feet. According to the Yountville Municipal Code, construction signs should be limited to one non-illuminated sign per side of construction. They shall not exceed 24 square feet and shall be removed prior to the building occupancy. As presented right now, both these logos are each about a little over 23 square foot. Add them together exceeds the allotted size for construction signs. There's also two logos where traditionally there's one 24 square foot construction sign. In the center, we also have a quote that is inconsistent with what we would traditionally call a construction sign. because construction signs mean a sign stating the name and address of those individuals or firms directly connected with the construction project. However, this does add an artistic element to the sign that is worth noting. So what the board is now being asked to consider is to make an exception to what is in the Yountville Municipal Code with the application that is before you tonight. The applicant, who we have a representative here, can talk later and you can ask questions of her, has also expressed being open to the idea of reducing the size of both these logos so that together they may add up to 24, so maybe reducing them to 12 square feet each. That's something that they're open to discussion about. If we wanted to just look at this application as presented with the two 23 square foot logos with the quote in the middle, the board would need to make exceptions according to the code as listed here. First, we need to see if there are exceptional circumstances applicable to this property that's different from the other properties in the vicinity that makes it so these signs are necessary. Second, that owing to such exceptional circumstances, the literal enforcement of this section of the code would be difficult unless we made these changes. Third, the granting of this exception will not constitute a grant of special privilege. In other words, make it appear that the town is showing favorites. Fourth, the granting of this exception will not be materially detrimental to the public welfare or to the property or similar improvements in the vicinity. And lastly, granting of this exception will not be inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of our sign ordinance. And so I'm going to leave this up so we can discuss those items as the ZDRB conducts its discussion. But for now, staff is here for any questions. CDRB is just being asked to consider the application, conduct a public hearing, ask questions of staff or of the applicant, and conduct a discussion, consider the application. So we're
Okay.
here for any questions.
Carrie, do you have any questions of staff?
Not at this time. I may after we hear from the applicant.
Okay.
Nor
Karen?
do I.
I have one, as usual. If we just had a sign up that said summer of 2016, would that be considered a construction sign?
That says opens in summer 2016, or a sign that only has the language summer 2016 on it?
Definitions. Yeah.
Because right now, a construction sign states the name, address, or those individuals connected with construction, or just the name of the owner and the ultimate user.
So if it said open summer of 2016, would that be a construction sign?
It could be interpreted as such if there's another element consistent with this definition in there as well.
I think that's it's a little bit of a stretch. I don't think it's a horrible stretch that you're providing some information as to when it will be open. Under the definition of construction sign, definitely the RH hardware would be allowed as being that. The applicant is certainly aware that there will not be allowed any other signage allowed, even with the barricade that's in place. There will be no other contractors'
okay.
signs that are up typically.
Okay.
Whether opening in the summer of 2016, I think it's just providing a little more information. In my mind, as long as it met the size requirement, I would say that would probably be okay.
In addition to,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. I don't have any questions, so.
I do have a
ahead.
follow-up to that, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
The signage ordinance mentions a commercial message or commercial language, which I don't have the whole thing written out, but it's commerce or a message with commerce or profit as its main purpose. And to your point of opening summer of 2016, would that throw us from a construction sign into a commercial message sign? And if so, is there any difference in what would be before us to determine?
That's a good question.
I think it certainly is something to be thought, that you should use in your deliberations. I can think of a lot of construction signs that I do see that talk a little bit about dates. They may have a contractor's information that they're working and, when the project is going to be completed is sometimes included in those signage, in that signage. I think it's definitely an area where it could be considered a commercial message in some way, just because it is providing information, but it's also informational in nature. It's not really, it's not designed to invite people in at the time that the sign is up. So that's where I would kind of draw the line between this is a temporary sign versus a permanent sign.
But it's definitely worth considering as
Right.
the ZDRB conducts this discussion.
Yeah, we can continue the discussion when we discuss. Any more questions? Okay, then we can move to comments from the applicant.
Hi there. I'm Jordan Brown from Restoration Hardware. Thank you for your consideration tonight in this review of our proposed artistic quote. As you can see, we don't typically install, or we don't install typical construction barricades. They're a much higher standard, I think. I'd like to think of a barricade. We, in all of our galleries, this is actually a standard barricade, I should say, that goes in all of our high-end galleries to present the new work, to showcase our new project. Our the high-profile galleries that have seen this have been, ranging from New York to Denver to Los Angeles to Chicago. The quote, like the barricade, is indicative of our brand and our quality in which we strive to work in. The barricade, it's actually up now, so you can see the quality of fabrication. It's pretty impressive how many pages of guidelines we have of making sure that the seams of the barricade are executed properly. The color of the barricade is the exact formula. The vinyls that are applied are done in a professional manner. And then in addition to the construction of it, the maintenance of it throughout the entire construction process, despite construction being a very typically dirty trade, we keep the barricade freshly painted and the vinyls, and ensure that the vinyls are applied at all given times. It also helps that our CEO lives around the corner, so he's very intent on making sure that everything is looking at a first-class rate. To go back to the quote itself, as I said, it's been a corporate signature on our barricades on all of our high-profile galleries. It epitomizes our company values, which describes the creative process, and is an artistic gesture rather than a construction advertisement. As Nathan and Marlene has already stated, we don't allow GC or subcontractor advertisements on the barricade. We keep things as cleanly as you would see them up here. To reference just briefly the reason why there are two logos, we really value symmetry and balance in our signs, and therefore the request of having two is just to therefore balance the signage so that it looks aesthetically pleasing and balanced. And again, we use the quote to demonstrate not necessarily destroying a site or construction, but how we make a great effort in creating a new vision, in questioning the status quo. With each gallery we build, we improve on what was done in the past, effectively destroying today's reality to create tomorrow's brighter future. We understand that there was some confusion that occurred with the square footage on the signs on both logos, so we're happy to talk about, or we're happy to get feedback from you tonight about the projected square footage, if there's a revision to this. This is the barricade, I should say. I'm here representing our graphics team, so this was not my beautiful design personally. Whatever feedback you give tonight, I'll be taking back to them for their final use. So I would appreciate any input. If there are a couple ultimate displays that you would find acceptable, I'd really appreciate any input I could give them so that there's as much information as possible. So,
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you. Does anybody have any question of the applicant?
I do. Thanks for coming. And I have lived in Houston where you had a beautiful store, not a gallery, but it was really a beautiful store.
Yeah.
So,
no, we definitely call that a gallery.
Oh, okay. I didn't
That one's
know.
pretty
I couldn't
that
tell
one's pretty
because
special.
it was you guys redid it from the ground up, and it was
Yeah.
really spectacular.
That's actually one store or gallery that we consider our first birth of our new flagships. So,
Well, I will say it's beautiful. So, do I understand you correctly? You use this quote on all of your gallery construction?
we do. It's a standard on all of our high-profile projects, and because Yountville, our CEO, has a home here, and we consider this a very special and unique project, it goes in with our high-profile gallery location. So we consider it to be a more special project, and therefore want to treat it as such.
And what feedback have you had from the public on the verbiage, if any?
From across. So it's funny. I actually asked. I've worked on this in our West Hollywood gallery that opened, and we didn't receive any negative feedback. I did ask our Chicago team, and that's a historic building. So if they had any concern, I know there was a concern about using the word destruction when it's a vacant site, and in that case, it was a historic building. So I was worried if they had any negative feedback on the destruction, but their local zoning board said the same thing once they understood that it's a quote that talks about the creative process and the iterative process, that they were open to interpretation from an artistic standpoint.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I will open the public comment section, if anybody has any comments. Okay, I will close the public comment session, and we can begin our discussion. Any thoughts?
I'll
Karen?
let you guys go first. I'm the new kid.
It's really beautiful, and it sets a new standard that I think I would love to see the standard for a construction barricade. I mean, why allow chain link fences and mesh? This is really lovely. Can you put up those comments again about, no, the other one. Yeah, that. I don't see any exceptional circumstances where we should allow doubling of the signage allowed. 2 24-foot square signs seems unjustified when that's the guideline and that's the one everybody else has to follow. So I would say either 2 12-foot square or 1 24-foot square, leaving that up to the applicant. And then I think the quote is a lovely addition to it, if it's not in any way considered part of it being a construction sign. That's why I was asking, should we ask them to move summer of 2016 to the other side? But if that doesn't create any conflicts, I'd be okay leaving the quote and
You mean
just
summer 2016
to
before the
or move it to under RH Yountville Gallery summer of 2016. Because I think that's
similar
the way it
to
is
the
now,
quote that's
right?
there right now. It
'Cause that's
says
what they have
opening
up
summer
now. I haven't seen it,
2016.
but if that created any kind of confusion,
So that the
with
quote would
sign.
just say, see what destruction has wrought,
And
and
then-
then that's it. And then the summer of
Yes.
16 would be
Yeah.
somewhere else.
If we're feeling that it's allowing a construction sign to be over the square footage by putting 2016.
I mean, I get what you're saying with the side, the two entities, but I don't know if that's really, to me, that's more commercialized. It's a marketing kind of schematic more than it is a construction schematic, but the summer component, I don't really have a problem with that.
Okay, good.
That's just me.
Carrie, what do
Could
you
we
think?
have the exceptions back up, please? And just for discussion's sake, on E3, the granting of this exception will not constitute a grant of special privilege. And I'm just wondering if we have another barrier go up across Washington.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
thinking,
That's a good point.
because it is beautiful. Don't get me wrong; it's beautiful. But
Right.
would it be then? Do we want to do that for everybody? And what is the exceptional circumstance here that would allow? This is a major variation.
Right.
And again, I have no objection to it creatively. I'm just wondering from the application of the statute standpoint.
And so from the exception, what would you consider then to be the exception? The whole, the Picasso quote as well as the,
Because if you look at, isn't it a 90-foot front?
90.
So we're going to have 40 feet of type, 2 lines, and then 2 logos. It's going to be pretty bold, I think.
But I think we can separate the construction sign that has the name of what it's going to be, because that falls under the definition of the construction sign. I think the question is kind of, does the quote fall into the description of a construction sign? Because it's not providing, can you put that
Right,
little?
that's what you're saying.
We don't have copies, so you can put that little description of the construction sign up again.
the definition.
Definition, yeah. Construction sign means a sign stating the name, address, individual firms directly connected with a project, and the name of the owner or the user. So that would be the 24-foot square sign, and does the quote, does that describe the quote? The quote doesn't really fall under that.
Or is that an
description.
architectural element? I think that's
Yeah.
really
Right, like
whether
an
or not you
artistic
want to
component that
you're
adding
an
to it.
artistic
Yeah,
component.
if somebody decided to paint a sign, would that,
So in other words, if someone else came in with a similar project that wanted to do some sort of artwork in the center, I think that should be something that would be considered. I mean, it's an
Separate
architectural,
from
separate,
the
separate from the.
24-foot square
Yeah.
construction sign.
I see them
Yeah.
as separate things.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
And this is my first foray through the sign ordinances, so that's why I have so many questions. Okay, so we're looking at the construction sign where there might be a variance because of the size of the logo, and then we're looking at the middle as artistic, aesthetic.
That's what we're discussing. That's what we're trying to decide.
I think
Yeah.
that's what
Thinking
they're
that's-
determining.
yeah.
That's what they would like us to do.
And believe
That's what
me,
they're
we know that our sign ordinance needs lots of work. That's another thing that needs to be, really overhauled. But, there really isn't any kind of a definition in there about what's an artistic component. I think it's fine to make that determination that it is, and it's fine not to. I think that you really can do either way.
Because then we're back to kind of the commercial message, too. I mean, if that's their flagship quote, is that a commercial message, and what does that do for the future?
Right. So like if Stuart Sellers came back and they wanted to do a sign and it's across the street from RH and they have a quote or they had some sort of artistic component and elongated 90-foot, the exception is probably the main issue. If you give an exception to this, you give an exception to everybody who's going to want some sort of extra artistic component, or this is their message, or my mantra's this. So, it's art. It's not, even though it's not construction, it's.
But is it an
element.
exception if it's, doesn't fall in the definition of the construction sign? If it's the artistic element, is it an exception?
No,
If we add an artistic
No,
element?
I think
falls in
the
the
exception to me
definition
would be whether or not it's, the one versus two, because we're saying
Right.
if you want to consider, still adopting the 24 feet, it's now 2 instead of 1. So the exception language, in my mind, if you're going to grant the
That would be
2,
the
that's where the exception would have to be. And I think we could make,
That's symmetry.
it's symmetry. It doesn't exceed the overall construction signage requirements. There may be a way to make some findings about that.
Okay.
So what in the sign ordinance allows the quote part? What kind of a sign is that? What would allow us, why would we not need another exception for that, which I'm willing to look at, I'm just,
Looking at, based on our staff's interpretation, there's nothing that explicitly does not allow it, would be the way that you could frame it.
It's not really, art isn't defined, it's not discussed, it's kind of omitted. So it's a little difficult to decide just because it's not defined in the ordinance and it's not prohibited in the ordinance. So I think, it's definitely an area that needs to be addressed when this is revisited, but that makes it a little more difficult for you. And I'm sorry about that.
I think it would be a nice change if the barricades were made nicer looking with art or something, or color, or quotes, or, well, quality of workmanship. And then
Yes, if you
stick
look at
to
most of the
construction sign.
Yeah, the construction signs, or the construction fencing around town looks terrible. It really does. And this is, a great improvement over that. So, but you're right. And I'm interested in kind of understanding what other, it sounds like most of the other agencies that have had RH projects have allowed them. So, we really need to look at how they did those interpretations as well, and how their ordinance has allowed those sorts of things.
For me, I think this sign, I think, draws attention to the site, whereas the other signage and fencing and the green mesh, to me, it just doesn't, there's no call for what's to come. So to me, this actually almost makes it more visible and is more pronounced, and I think that's the purpose of it, is to make it more pronounced. So as long as we know that, this is very much it's a construction sign, so that means it should state that as the name of the address. I don't think this even shows the address on there. So this is not a construction sign to me. I mean, it's a sign that, that there is something to come. But as long as we all know that this, to me, is not defined as a construction sign, that's okay, but.
One way it could be interpreted as a construction sign is reading after the and or, where it says and or the name of the owner and the ultimate user.
Right.
It does have that information, and so that is one way that we can interpret this definition to constitute it as a construction sign. But you are correct, it doesn't contain the individuals or firms or the dates or the address and stuff like that. Or the names, I mean.
How tall are the letters? I know they're 40 feet wide, but how tall are they? In the quote
3
part.
feet
Or the quote part.
is between the quote and.
3 feet altogether.
3 feet.
Altogether, it's
From the
3.
top to the bottom, so 2 lines of quote. So
So if you look at this.
probably
they're-
roughly a foot high.
They're about 10 to 11 inches.
And the top line's bigger than the lower line, too.
That looks like a billboard to me.
And then how big is the lower line? Maybe 4 or 5?
Yeah, it's slightly more than that. I believe it's 6.
Like 8, yeah.
6 to 8, yeah.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion? Have we come to an agreement?
I'm fine with it. I really am. I'm fine with it. I think the dual left and right, I don't know if that's entirely necessary. We're already making an exception, I think, by allowing this sign to be not a traditional construction sign. So I think that that's kind of our give. And I think, that is a very big sign. I mean, to me, it's more like a billboard, to be honest. But it is beautiful and it's well done. So, but I don't know. The left and the right, I think maybe one goes away. I don't know if it's entirely necessary. I think it becomes even more pronounced, and it's already pronounced.
So you'd
That's
want,
my opinion.
you'd want,
Or to be within the signage, then I guess maybe they decrease the size a little bit. Oh,
would you ask them to stay within the 24-foot square?
yeah, I think if that's if that's what it is, then
Okay.
I don't think that's too hard to.
So we need to put that in a motion
Adjust.
format.
Yeah, I think you
Can
could,
I
you could
do-
provide some
Well-
options also, because if they'd like to retain the size and just do one,
Right.
you could give them the option to do that. It sounds like from Jordan's
wanna maintain
perspective, they like to be
symmetry, then they
symmetrical,
decrease
but they
it.
may rather be larger and just do one, when she comes back and explains your concerns.
And your motion could reflect on the condition that they resubmit plans according to what has been discussed today.
Right, you
and
could- you could
approved
look
by
at them
staff,
again
something
at
like
the
that,
next
or come
meeting.
to another meeting, either way.
Or you could say 1 or 2 signs not exceeding 24 square feet, if you wanted to leave
Right.
that option open.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want me?
But if you do 2 signs, that's when we're required for the ZDRB to
Right.
make these findings.
Then we should probably bring back that item, because we'll have to write some findings, exception findings.
If you want to have 2
Right.
signs.
Okay.
mean,
Can we
so that
make-
would be.
Can I make a motion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, Jeff never made motions, so I wasn't sure. Okay, I'll try, and then you guys can see if you like it. I would make a motion to accept item number 15-381, a review of the RH Gallery barricade, agreeing to limit them to the 24 square foot sign, and let them choose whether to put it in one location or two, and allow the quote in the center without any exceptions or changes. Does that make sense?
It does. If they choose to have two signs that total 24, would that need to be brought back to the board so these findings could be made? Because that now makes two signs when the code says one.
Oh, that part.
Can we make that finding today?
Yeah, you know what,
To say we believe
to say
that
to bring it back.
24 square feet, however it's configured,
Oh, yeah.
that there's an exceptional circumstance that would support that?
right.
That could be number 5 there. The granting of this exception
Well,
will
it's
not
not
be
in-
inconsistent.
the general
You could find
purpose
right
and
now
Okay.
that it is consistent with the spirit of the law.
Well, actually, we have to make a finding on all 5 of those, because
Yes,
there's an
yeah.
and after 4. So we would have to have all 5 findings.
Yeah, I mean, I could certainly work something up while we're talking about some of our other items, and we could do it later this evening at the end of the meeting. I could work on some right now, or we could
Okay.
just bring it back. I don't know what waiting a month does to the applicant's timeline. I mean, you have your signage up. I don't know whether that month would hurt you or not.
If you do it right now, then we can vote on it at the
Yeah,
end of the
I
meeting.
can go ahead and
Okay.
put something together right now.
Okay.
Nathan can talk about the other items. So-
Okay,
Okay,
does that sound good?
want to do that? Okay,
Okay.
so then, let's just, you made a motion. Do you want to, does somebody want to second
somebody
it,
want
subject to the
second?
staff developing them, and
Or
we
you can just
and then
continue the item to
We'll
later
just
this
continue,
evening.
yeah, we'll continue to the end of the meeting. How about
Okay.
that? Your exceptions. Okay.
Okay,
Are you comfortable with continuing
Yes.
the item till this evening?
please.
Okay. I'll go get
Oh, the rest,
Barbara.
yes, please.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, it lived. Oh, you printed all that out.
I didn't know it was 700 pages. I just thought it was like, it just kept going, and then I ran out of ink. And I was like, oh.
Usually they give us a whole report so that we can reference
I know.
those quotes and things.
Download that to my phone.
Yeah,
Yeah, this, I didn't realize there was that many pages.
Okay, we can move on to item number 9.
Great. Well, this is just primarily an informational welcome to the ZDRB and then taking care of a tiny bit of business regarding the workshop. So first, welcome. You're part of the ZDRB, new members. Welcome to prior members too. Welcome. It's good to see you. Okay. I sent a poll out earlier, and thank you all for contributing answers twice to it when I added more dates. Still, with all of that, there wasn't one date that everyone was able to meet at the same time. There was one, however, that we saw where everyone was available on Thursday, the 3rd of September. We just need to pinpoint a time. I know many said 3 o'clock was preferred. Two said 4 o'clock. Are we comfortable coming up with a time for that date? It may be a 3:30 if we compromise.
I can do
I know it's tough. Everyone's looking at their schedule right now.
any time after 2.
Okay.
Yeah, my day is
Me too.
square.
Okay. So Thursday
3:30 to 5:30? So you said?
afternoon. If there's an
Okay.
afternoon time that works. we
I
can-
just need to be St. Helena by 6. So-
Okay.
And 3:30 works for me.
Okay,
So can we 3:30 to 5:30?
sure, on September 3rd.
That's great. On Thursday, September 3rd.
It wasn't so hard.
That was great. All right. At that meeting, staff will review with ZDRB both new and previously existing. That we'll be reviewing what are the different roles and responsibilities of being part of the Zoning Design and Review Board. What are the kind of things that typically come to our meetings? What does the board have voting power to do? In our previous packet that we sent out to you, there was also about an 80-page how-to manual. I'm not angry if no one has it memorized tonight, but it would be worth reading prior to that workshop, getting a good understanding of what your role is and also what the power of the review board has. When you have time, going on the website, townofyountville.com, and taking a look at our municipal code to finding out what the roles of design review is. Also taking a look at our general plan. We'll be able to provide a lot of that material at the workshop as well, but the more prepared you can be going into it, the better as well. This upcoming year, we do have an update to the general plan that we are scheduling, and the board is going to be heavily involved in that. There will be a number of workshops, most likely, and public outreach associated with it that we anticipate the board being heavily involved in. And so the more you can get involved and educated on what our general plan says, as well as what general plans are, what the heck they are in general, it's always beneficial to review that material.
Will that process be divided into subcommittees, or will we all be involved in all of it? Or how will you
There's
do that?
a number of different elements to every general plan. Know last year how we had the housing element as well as the circulation element, and we had separate workshops in ZDRB. I assume similar workshops like that will be coming to the board. I don't know if we'll have separate subcommittees. That could be something we look into, and we can discuss that at the workshop and as we go more into the process, what would be the best way to do it.
And everybody is required to participate in
Yes.
all of them, some of them?
We would
How
love
will you
all
do
your
that?
attendance
Okay.
for everything.
It's
The general
Yeah.
plan is probably the most important,
Oh,
one of the most
absolutely.
important documents that the town adopts in its incorporation, because it really guides how we look and how we act and, you know, how we want to be as a community. And so I think it's a great opportunity to be involved, and really by having these meetings televised, we hope to get more participation by the community as well. And so, you know, it is going to be a lot of work, but I think it's a lot of really good work that's going to help, you know, put your fingerprints on what Yountville looks like in 40 years. And so there almost isn't a more important job. So we would certainly hope that everyone wanted to be part of that.
Really, if there was a document that guides how a town is going to look and how it currently looks, it's the general plan. The general plan influences the ordinances that are passed. The general plan influences what projects are taken on by the Public Works Department or other departments in the town. And so it's a big responsibility, and that's why we didn't tell you new members before you applied, but that's what you did.
Clever, clever.
Also included in the packet was a conflict map. So now on the screen, everyone knows where everyone lives. So within this 500 square foot radius, circle foot radius, is where your conflict is. So it's 500 500 feet from your house. The primary, those that rent, it's not as big of a conflict as those that own property, because when you own property, there's more of financial stake with some of the decisions that you're making, whereas while renting, you don't have that financial interest on your property values and everything. But typically, as evidenced in our meeting tonight, when projects come up that are within your circle here, it will be on you to contact staff and determine whether you should be conflicted out or not. And we'll be able to have that discussion and be able to prepare statements like Barbara and Mikkel made this evening in order to conflict out. Or it could turn out that we aren't conflicted, like when we were talking, Karen this evening was not conflicted out. So sometimes it's a case-by-case basis. Luckily, there's only 5 of you. We can have those meetings, and it won't take too much time.
I think the interesting thing about that I've learned is that the FPC is really the guiding agency, state law. It's not local law that provides these conflict regulations. We're going to have some super wonderful training for you as this workshop, and one of them will be ethics training, and it will also be Brown Act training so that you understand when you can and can't vote and how you do those sorts of things. So it is very complicated. So it's interesting because a property interest is actually ownership of property, and so in Mikkel's case, he's a renter. So is Karen. Legally, you don't have a conflict because of your residence. It was because of your employer. Sometimes, though, you may decide that even with it not being a legal conflict, that there's a conflict, that you don't want there to be an appearance that your personal opinion about something is taking precedent over your role as a commissioner. And so often people will recuse themselves even when they don't have a legal conflict just because they live close to where the project's going ahead. So we'll talk a lot more about this in the future, but we just wanted to get the map out to you so you could see where it was and where you need to be concerned. We also work before the staff report to make sure that we discuss that with you if it's too close and what your position is going to be. So
with that, we'll be covering all that and more still at the workshop. If you have other questions about what your role is, send it on to us so we can make sure to cover it. We also have time while Marlene is writing down findings to a previous item. If you have questions or want to conduct any CDRB discussion on what was presented just now, now's the time to do that as well.
And then we passed out, I'm not sure if Nathan talked at all because I was over here scratching away, but we did pass out a Institute of Local Government workbook and handbook that I think is a really good document for you to read. It's 80 pages, so obviously we're not going to talk about it. The other thing to keep in mind is the League of California City has absolutely excellent training for planning commissioners. And they have it will be next March. It's actually in San Ramon, so it's close enough that if you had time and you could go to those workshops, you would come away with a wealth of knowledge about your role as a planning commissioner and land use law and that sort of thing. So we'll be in touch with you as that date comes closer to see if you can make time to go down for that training, because I think it will really help you. I know Jeff Durham said it was singularly the best thing that he ever went to when he learned how to be a commissioner. Yeah, so
the one that was in San Francisco last year.
That was in
yeah,
San Francisco,
2 years
yeah.
ago. They're in the south 1 year, and then they're in the north the next. And fortunately for us, the north is next, and it's San Ramon, so it's not too far to go for you to go to the workshop, and it may keep the cost down for the town to send more than one or two people. They probably could afford to pay your registration for more than two of you to go. So that would definitely be something I think it's the 2nd through the 4th of March. And I know Sandra will be in touch with you about signing up for that. Okay.
So if there's any questions, we're happy to take them.
I have a question. What kind of snacks are you bringing to the workshop? Get serious,
3:30.
Nathan.
We can get good ones. There will be refreshments.
The workshop is not televised.
No, it is not. So you can speak your mind.
And where will it be?
We'll host it here.
Okay. Okay.
And we'll send out an email with all that information, including the menu.
Potluck.
Choose only one.
Okay.
Are we
So that
getting
concludes
close?
that item, yeah. Well, I wanted to discuss maybe another approach as I was
Okay,
thinking
as
here.
you're thinking it through?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
so
Now, do they have to be
they have to
excused
go
in?
ahead and leave
They
now.
can choose
And they
to
can go ahead and leave
stay if they
the
want, or they
meeting.
can go home if this is the
Oh,
last
Yeah,
item on
this
the
is the
agenda.
last item, so you certainly don't need to stick around.
We're basically
We
done.
appreciate you being here. We're excited to have such a great board. I think the council made excellent choices, and we appreciate you applying, because it is work. It's time out of your busy day, but your input is really valuable. So thank you for your service.
You guys.
Thank you.
Thank
See
you.
you next time.
Yeah. You missed a good one.
Okay.
Okay.
So now you need to reopen.
Okay, so we will reopen the public hearing for 15-381 for the review of the RH Gallery barricade with some revision.
Well, I started thinking about this when I was working on the exceptions, and I think, given the fact that the signage has an art piece in the center, I think you could consider it to be one sign. It's not two separate structures. It could be considered to be one sign because it's all within the same graphic area. That might be one approach. If you're not comfortable with that approach, then we can look at the exceptions, but it might be easier to make that determination because it's not a separate structure.
But they would still need to reduce the size.
They would still need to reduce the size,
to
but
24
there would
foot
not
square.
have to be an exception because it would be one sign instead of two. We would be writing the exceptions for it to be two signs.
But then if you're making it one sign, it's much larger than the 24 square foot.
Well, the art piece wouldn't be considered part of the actual verbiage. What does it say? Oh, it does say sign. Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah. I
The
don't buy
That was
definition
a-
of
that was an
construction
approach,
sign
okay.
as
That'd be
well
massive, it'd be a 90-foot sign.
Yeah,
talks about
yeah.
that it shall not exceed
Yes,
24 square
okay.
feet, not
You're-
that the
you're
text
right. I
shouldn't
think that's
exceed 24
I think that's
square
good.
feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Well, we'll scratch that approach. Okay. So I think the exceptions, we could say the purpose of the sign regulations is to provide guidance and promote tasteful treatment of construction signage in town. For number, do you want to put that back up? Yeah. Okay. So for number one, there are exceptional circumstances applicable to the property, building, or sign involving which do not apply generally to other properties, buildings, or signs in the vicinity. These circumstances may include the shape, size, location, or surroundings of the properties, building, or the type of design of the sign involved. So I would say there are exceptional circumstances applicable to the property, given the type or design of the sign involved and the artwork. That having the artwork and the symmetry, that it having the design of the sign with the symmetry and the quote in the center provides there to be an exception, given the symmetry. That might be one. That owing to the exceptional circumstances, the literal enforcement of the specific provisions of this chapter would result in practical or unnecessary difficulty not created by or attributable to the applicable owner of the property. The literal enforcement of the regulations would the size that the most important aspect of the ordinance is to reduce and keep the size of the sign within the 24 square feet, and that the design of the sign as proposed with the artwork in the same. So basically going back to the fact that we're including the artwork. I just don't think I'm going to be able to come up with language tonight without really thinking it through, but I think that given the fact that that we've included a quote which is considered to be a design element, I think we can write findings around that, and I'd rather be given a little more time to do that than to do it here on the fly. I think it's going to take me a little bit longer to
Yeah, 'cause I don't
think
agree
that
with-
through, because
yeah.
we want to make sure that we're not granting a special exception that would allow these sorts of things to be all over the place. I think that if someone else came with a piece of art, in the center or a design, that we should be able to consider it. So I want to write some findings that we could also use in the future for something like that, because we want to be able to promote that. I think that's a good thing to have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Can we make a motion where we approve it,
subject to
but,
this,
but without the exceptions? Because I don't think it deserves those exceptions. I mean, I don't.
well, I think it might be, I don't know.
The code does say, as after the letter E there, the ZDRB, after the public hearing, may grant an exception to the strict application of the provisions of this chapter only after the board makes all
of
of
the
the
following.
Right.
findings.
So
So that's what we would be constricted with.
I really think that this should be brought back to you. I think we've heard that you're interested in the design and you think that the 24 square feet is the ultimate, of ultimate importance. The applicant right now has signage that provides at least some construction signage that does meet our code, and that's approved, and they can move forward, so a month isn't going to damage them in any way. And I think that the findings should be done in a way that we can use them in the future for construction signage, because we'd like to see this replicated in the future. So I would say let's go ahead and continue this to the next meeting, and we will put together some findings
I just
and
feel
bring it
like
back
we're
to you.
not doing our job by not coming up with a solution tonight, but technically you say,
No, we
can't.
should have done a better job on making sure we had brought you exceptions with this, because we should have done that, and we missed the mark. So
okay.
don't think that you have to come up with things on the fly. Usually when you do things on the fly, they don't turn out very well. So it's better to give it some thought and spend a little time to do it.
Because
So
I would love to see this kind of
Right.
of thing be allowed
right,
within, somehow separated into construction sign and artistic element.
correct.
So that is a motion that you can make tonight. If you would like to have staff pursue these findings, if all three of you do believe that
You
this
can-
spirit of a project you want
could-
to see proceed, that is an action that can be taken tonight.
You could conceptually approve it and ask staff to bring back the findings at the next meeting.
And as well as staff working with the applicant to come up with a
Okay.
plan if we
No,
want
I think
to
if you
see
just don't want it
letters
to
reduced.
exceed 24 square feet, that you don't have any objection to being 2 signs instead of 1, as long as staff can write appropriate findings that you can adopt at your next meeting. I think that's an okay conceptual motion to make if you'd like.
What do you guys think?
Or you just could continue the entire item and we could just bring it back.
I do agree that we are setting a precedent. This is the kind of look that we want, in the sense of it's not orange or green fencing. I mean, I think this is a happy thing. But I also agree with staff that we do need to be careful in the findings, because it uses some pretty strong words, exceptional circumstances, this and that, and we want to set a good foundation for future use. As far as a conceptual motion, I don't have any objection to that. I don't know that I'm prepared to make it, but can we just give you direction?
Yes.
Would that work in lieu of a motion, and maybe give more flexibility on working it through for you guys?
I think that works great. Yeah, it's fine.
And how does this, may I ask the applicant something, Madam Chairperson?
I think so, yes.
How would this affect you if it came back to us next month, if we take this month to kind of get our thoughts finalized?
So, permission to speak
Yes.
candidly? I've been
Come up, yeah.
So I've been in communication with our graphics team while you
Oh,
were
excellent.
under discussion, and they're willing to entertain smaller logos split up if that's something. That would also likely scale the quote down as well, so that it graphically
Oh, okay.
reads that.
Okay.
So we can certainly submit that as an addendum, amendment to our initial proposal.
Okay,
And we're certainly open to reviewing that
good.
at a later time too, if that has the support of, the anticipated support of the board and staff.
Okay. Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we all creatively support it and want to find a way to make it fit
Right.
in the parameters given and allow creativity, because we would like to encourage this. So
Okay.
if you could come
will
back
do
to
that.
us and we'll continue
All
it.
right, that sounds good.
Is that it for that one? Okay. Any staff or board reports? You kind of already did. Before we adjourn, I would just like to say thank you to Marlene for stepping in and managing the process. You guys together, and you, Marlene, you're producing such clear and helpful
Except
staff
for
report.
tonight.
Well, except for
No,
tonight. Clear and staff reports make it possible that we can read it for 3 days and review it and step in and be able to do it. So thank you for being a part of this. And it's exciting that you're going to be staying too.
Thank you.
In a capacity.
Well, it's
So
been
thank
it's
you.
been wonderful. I'm going to miss everybody. I keep telling everybody
Oh, we can call you,
I
right?
know. Yeah. I'll still be here once in a while. So
Yeah, and it'll be fun to have Sandra back too.
yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Right.
Adjourn.
Thank you.
Thank you.